This podcast is brought to you by North Carolina's electric cooperatives.
This is NC Spin, an unrehearsed discussion on issues of interest to North Carolinians. Now, here is your moderator, Tom Campbell.
Every year, the late Bill Friday would invite the sitting governor to appear on his North Carolina People's Show for the governor to be able to give a perspective of what has taken place in that past year, as well as to outline goals for the coming year. And we are very honored to have with us this week Governor Roy Cooper to do just that and sit with us for a few minutes. We have recorded this show at the winter meeting of the North Carolina Academy of Family Physicians. And we will begin our uninterrupted discussion with Governor Cooper after these brief messages from our underwriters.
In rural North Carolina, vibrant main streets depend on a thriving agricultural economy. Research at NC State improves the products our farmers raise and grow. NC State Extension brings that research from labs to fields in all 100 counties, which means growth for rural North Carolina. At NC State, what we think and do helps grow local economies. Discover how NC State and Extension work for you. Visit wegrownc.ncsu.edu.
Production underwriting support provided in part by the more than 65,000 members of the North Carolina Retired Governmental Employees Association.
Today's tools make you a real DIYer, and as a member of an electric cooperative, you have lots of valuable tools to help you do it yourself in controlling your home energy use and budget, leaving you free to be Dad.
Governor, welcome to our show. Thank you for doing this. I've done some research, and everybody is unique, but you are perhaps the most unique governor we've ever had. You're the only governor that we've had who served in both houses of the state legislature, as a member of the Council of State, and governor of North Carolina. So it's very unique. You have a genuinely different and unusual perspective. I'm interested, as our viewers I'm sure will be, in your perspective of the state in 2018.
We have done some positive things with bringing thousands of jobs to North Carolina. We are working very hard to expand health care, and I'm grateful to be here with North Carolina's family physicians. Thank you for the lives that you save. Thank you for the care that you provide your patients in North Carolina. I also believe that we are poised to take off, particularly next year, if we can achieve some consensus on expanding Medicaid, making sure we're getting our teacher salaries to the national averages, and making sure that we are creating the kind of workforce that creates jobs for not only today but tomorrow. I will say, Tom, that we've had a gut punch with Hurricane Florence.
I was going to ask you.
And we have suffered 42 deaths. We've mourned 42 deaths. We have had over $17 billion in damages, the greatest natural disaster North Carolina has ever experienced. I believe we've all pulled together and worked hard. Many people in this audience, you and others, have helped to pull North Carolina forward here. And the thing I know is that we are determined to get this done.
So 2018 was a year not only of physical storms, because we certainly had those, but also political storms. I think you'll have to agree. There's always been a certain tension between the executive branch and the legislative branch. You were on the other side of that table for a number of years, sure. But it appears to me that tension has exacerbated, and that the balance of powers between the executive and legislative branches is being challenged like we've never seen it before. Why?
Well, first, let me tell you where I believe we have achieved some consensus with the General Assembly. One, we repealed House Bill 2, which we needed to do. We still have work to do to fight discrimination in this state and encourage the diversity we need and to show the world that we're open for business, but we got that done. Secondly, we've been able to agree like never before on economic incentives that we need to put us in the debate for significant jobs coming to North Carolina, and that hasn't been done before. We've been able to agree to do that. And we've agreed on this hurricane recovery for Hurricane Florence. So I told them when I got elected that I wanted to find common ground. And you mentioned my time in the legislature. I was the Senate Democratic Majority Leader when the House was Republican. And I helped negotiate taxes and teacher salaries and children's health insurance. You can find consensus if everybody agrees to come to the table. You have to want to. You have to want to. But I also told them that if they tried to overreach, that I would stand up to them. And I've tried to get them to expand Medicaid. They've not done so. They've not put enough in public education. They've provided a start, but not enough. And they've tried to upset the checks and balances that are important to our republic and that I think the people of North Carolina depend on. I think people of North Carolina want balance. So we've been able to fight off most of that, unfortunately, in court. They also tried to get it on the ballot and put it on the ballot to try to trick the people.
I want to talk about
trick the people into doing it, and the people said, no, we're not going to do it. So now after these elections, we're going to have significantly more balance of power here, and I look forward to sitting at the table with them, everybody having some leverage. When you have thoughtful, rational conversations where we believe in science and facts and data, then you can reach more thoughtful conclusions and you end up with better legislation. You know, I'm looking forward to doing that.
I remember during your campaign, you love to tell the story about playing high school basketball for Nash Central High School. And your job when you played Rocky Mount was to guard Phil Ford.
Yes.
Yeah. How many points was his average?
Well,
it was something like 30 points.
You got to remember that we triple teamed him and he drove through the lane one time. And my greatest accomplishment in life is that in high school, one night in the Rocky Mount High School gym, Roy Cooper, blocked Phil Ford's shot.
So all of this other stuff is just incidental.
He got 52 points that night, but not 54. Okay,
so that and being married to a Campbell lawyer. Those are your claim to fame. Well, two beautiful daughters. Let me move to the elections because you touched on that briefly in your opening remarks. Midterm elections, elimination of the veto-proof majorities in both houses. There were 6 constitutional amendments that were placed on the ballot. Of those 6, 4 of them passed, which included such things as voter ID, a tax cap, and so forth like that. 2 of them failed. Why do you think the voters of North Carolina decided that they didn't want these 2 constitutional amendments on who appoints open judicial vacancies and who appoints our State Board of Elections?
I think with the 2018 midterm elections and with the defeat of these 2 constitutional amendments, the people of North Carolina have said clearly they like balance. They don't like either the legislature or the executive to be in complete charge of government. They don't want Democrats or Republicans to be in complete charge. They want balance. I think that signal was pretty clear. Now, I think we would have had a lot more balance had we not had these super gerrymandered districts that are more gerrymandered than any state in the country. And if we can come to an agreement on a nonpartisan committee to draw these districts, I think you'll end up with representatives and senators who will be more responsive to
Some are predicting we're going to do away with this gerrymandering before the 2020 election. Are you optimistic about that?
I'm ready to lead the charge. I'm ready to sit right down and talk about how we do that because I am 100% for that. Even if Democrats completely took over the legislature and had the ability to draw these districts right now with the computers and the technologically diabolical way these things are drawn, I would say, no, we are not going to draw these things. We're going to set up this independent redistricting commission because that's the right thing to do. That is the balanced thing to do.
And I think the voters want it.
Well, you know what? People ought to be choosing their elected leaders instead of the elected leaders choosing their constituents.
You have been a major advocate for the expansion of Medicaid in North Carolina. What, some 500,000 new recipients could be added to the rolls of Medicaid,
right.
and ultimately it would save the state money, wouldn't it?
Right.
Tell us your reasoning for wanting to expand Medicaid.
There are a lot of working people out there who just strive to make it paycheck to paycheck, but they make a little bit too much money to qualify for Medicaid, and they can't afford health insurance premiums. Many times, even under the Affordable Care Act, they might not be able to. We can expand Medicaid to cover working North Carolinians and take indigent patients off the rolls, help with preventive health care. When you take indigent patients off the rolls, you help businesses out there help control their health care costs. You create 40,000 new good health care jobs. You help save rural hospitals and a lot of these family practices out there that are working hard, many of them seeing indigent patients.
Yeah.
And it's an economic development project.
So do you think
Tom.
that's going to happen? There's some who are saying the legislature may be softening up on that.
It needs to happen. It needs to happen, and we're willing to listen to their concerns about this, but we've got a plan that we think that when you do the economic analysis of this, aside from it being the right thing to do and making people healthier and helping to save lives, it's the economically smart thing to do because we're giving up billions of dollars that we've already paid to Washington that's going to other states and not coming to help us. I mean, this plan is in place. It's going to stay here. We should have taken advantage of it a long time ago. Now is the time, and we're going to need everybody to help us with this.
DHHS Secretary Mandy Cohen, who, by the way, I think most folks acknowledge is a rock star. Great appointment. And also Dave Richard, who's head of Medicaid, are really putting a tremendous amount of emphasis on whole person health care.
Yes.
North Carolina has some real problems. We've always had problems with health owing to our eating habits and our
right.
physical habits and smoking habits and so forth like that. What do we got to do to get people to understand that they've got a role to play in this health care situation?
You know, sometimes the environment that a person lives in, if there is mold, if there is infestation, this is what causes pulmonary disease. This is what childhood trauma causes significant problems for kids. There are things that are happening out there in the home and in the school that affect health care significantly. So now we have been forced into managed care for Medicaid, and we know that's going into place, and I know that there is a lot of
question marks
uneasiness about that. But Dr. Cohen understands, number one, that family physicians are living on the edge regarding Medicaid reimbursement, that you're the front lines of prevention. And I think that with this new program that we've got to enter into, she's going to understand what you guys do for that. But secondly, we've been able to get a waiver from the federal government for the first time ever to look at these kind of holistic, healthy alternatives to invest Medicaid money in. And there's a lot of research that has been done that if you deal with a lot of these things in the home, in the workplace, and in the school, you can positively affect not only people's health, but healthcare cost.
Let me move over to the economy just a little bit. Okay, it's just been released that we offered over $2 billion to Amazon. They still didn't come. We offered right at $1 billion to Toyota Mazda. They didn't come. We've offered all kinds of large sums of money to these big fish, so to speak. They're not coming here. You talked about the legislature just increasing the incentives. Are we going about this the wrong way?
Wait a minute. Just yesterday, I announced Honeywell, Fortune 100 company, moving from New Jersey to Charlotte, North Carolina. The day before that, I announced Advanced Auto Parts moving their corporate headquarters from Virginia to North Carolina. We have announced more jobs last year than ever had been announced. And one of the two, I think, important reasons, well, the main reason is the quality of our workforce and the investment in education. That's the number one reason. But we had two things holding us back. One was HB2, which was wrong in and of itself, but also was causing us significant problems. The second thing we had was the lack of basic economic incentives that put us at the table for competition, that even got us to the table to talk about this. We were able to get those two things done, the repeal of House Bill 2.
So we're looking at the wrong side of this. We're looking at the ones we lost instead of the ones we...
You can't win them all, okay? But what you can do is to create an environment where North Carolina is in play. And we've said to the rest of the country and the rest of the world, for that matter, that North Carolina is open for business. We've got a quality life for people to live. We've got low cost of living, low cost of doing business, great workforce. All of that combines to be a place where we want companies to come.
And a big factor in this, of course, is education. I know your mama was a school teacher.
She was that.
And so this is something that's dear to your heart. Give us a state of the state on education today.
Improving. We have the best community colleges and universities in the country. We've got work to do with early childhood, pre-K, and K through 12. You give me a good teacher in every classroom and a good principal in every school, I'll show you quality education. But the fact that we have some elected leaders who continue to beat down public education, who continue to appropriate money for unaccountable private school vouchers, who complain about the schools instead of trying to lift them up, it's turning good and eliminating things like teaching fellow scholarships, which attract our best and brightest into the teaching profession. That causes a problem. I think we've begun to turn it back. I don't think there's any question that our budgets that we proposed forced the General Assembly to do more with teacher pay. They didn't do enough, but they're doing more. And we've got a lot to do to get our teacher pay to at least the national average. We need to restore respect to the teaching profession, because therein lies our future. And I'm very excited about what we can do, particularly now with a better situation.
You were in the legislature back when we first passed legislation to start charter schools. I'd be interested in hearing your assessment. How do you think our charter schools are doing?
So I think charter schools have their place. I think experimenting and trying new things about how we educate kids, I think that's positive. The problem is we haven't done a very good job in using what we've learned from charter schools and applying it to our public schools. And I think that there are now too many of them. I think we need to be much more deliberate about how we approach charter schools, and we need to be less haphazard about it. And I think that has been happening over the last few years.
Let me hit a couple of items real quick. Recently, we had an immigration problem in North Carolina in which Samuel Oliver Bruno was invited to participate in an immigration hearing and was arrested by ICE and subsequently deported to Mexico. What can you as governor do about this immigration situation in North Carolina?
First, we need reasonable federal immigration reform. Second, deportation ought to concentrate on dangerous criminals, and we ought to be spending our time making sure we deport dangerous criminals. Families should not be separated, and we need to have a reasonable reform to this process. I think the redistricting would really help. Nonpartisan redistricting would force people to the table to come to consensus.
Make elections competitive.
But it's very frustrating for governors and other state and local leaders to have a situation like this. We need to secure the borders, no question about that. But you know, this country was built on immigrants, and our immigrant population contributes significantly to our economy.
Let's touch on the prison situation. In the past year, we've had 5 prison guards who have been murdered. Tremendous amount of turnover there. 1 in 5 of our prisoners has mental health problems. We got some 37,000 prisoners. And we need prison reform. Where are we on prison reform?
Well, I've ordered my Secretary of the Department of Public Safety, Eric Hooks, who is a fine career law enforcement officer. We have brought in people to help. Our corrections officers are valuable to us, and they need to be safe and secure in working in our prison system. It is unacceptable what has happened with these corrections officers getting injured and killed. I do believe that substance use disorder treatment, that education are the best ways out of this. And I'm going to work very hard on the reentry of prisoners into society. Most of the people who are in prison right now eventually are going to get out, and we're not doing enough to get them ready to come back into the population. So they don't go back. Correct. Recidivism, reducing recidivism will be a goal of my administration.
You touched briefly on this issue of opioid addiction. It's a big problem in North Carolina, and there are many facets to it. Tell us what's going on so far as what the state is doing for opioid.
We put forward an opioid strategic plan that is working to get substance use disorder treatment out, to get life-saving naloxone, to bring people back who have overdosed. This is killing people. It's destroying families. We have to get a hold of this. Expanding Medicaid, it's been proven to show that you're going to make a significant difference, because you're going to get people more substance use disorder treatment with Medicaid expansion. So that's yet another reason why we should be doing that next session.
But the naloxone is just an episodic kind of treatment. It is. The problem is we don't have the substance abuse centers in North Carolina to be able to take these people after they come down and help them in recover from these addictions.
There's a lot that goes into getting people back from addiction, and it requires a lot of hands-on attention by a lot of people. Any of you doctors see it every week. Families who have had to deal with it know how frustrating that it is, because particularly the opioid has a grip like really no other on a human being. It's physical, it's mental, and it's a very difficult cycle to break. So it's going to require significant attention, not just centers, but entire communities and counselors and people to help us navigate through this.
We can't let you go without you telling us about 2019. What are your goals for 2019? Legislative, education, healthcare, so forth.
Yeah, I want to raise teacher salaries and principal salaries and get the very best teachers and principals in the classroom. I want to expand access to health care. I want to have us a nimble workforce that's ready for the new jobs of tomorrow, so that we can show the rest of the country and the world that North Carolina is the place for these better paying jobs. I want to see middle class wages grow. We've had a strong economy and a lot of jobs, but a lot of people in the middle class are still seeing stagnant wages. I want us to take steps to clean our waters, to emphasize renewable energy, and I want us to take steps to reduce discrimination, to understand that diversity is a strength for us. It's a strength for these companies out there who have become more diverse. They see their bottom lines increase. I want a state government that looks like the people that it serves and protects. So we've got a lot on our plate, but I'm excited about 2019
Sound like you're going to have a busy year.
We are going to have a busy year.
Well, listen, we thank you for being with us, and we thank the North Carolina Academy of Family Physicians for allowing you and me to share this past year's happenings in the future, 2019. Next week, we're going to return to our regular format on NC Spin. In fact, it'll be our first show of the 2019 season on UNC-TV. We got a great show lined up. We've got an economist, Mike Walden. We've got Rebecca Tillett, who's a demographer, and two political analysts that are going to talk about the year 2019 in full. So I want you to join us, and we want the audience to join us. But until then, stay informed and watch out for the spin. Thank you, Governor.
In rural North Carolina, vibrant main streets depend on a thriving agricultural economy. Research at NC State improves the products our farmers raise and grow. NC State Extension brings that research from labs to fields in all 100 counties, which means growth for rural North Carolina. At NC State, what we think and do helps grow local economies. Discover how NC State and Extension work for you. Visit wegrownc.ncsu.edu.
Production underwriting support provided in part by the more than 65,000 members of the North Carolina Retired Governmental Employees Association.
Today's tools make you a real DIYer, and as a member of an electric cooperative, you have lots of valuable tools to help you do it yourself in controlling your home energy use and budget, leaving you free to be Dad.
North Carolina Channel is made possible by the financial contributions of viewers like you who support the UNC-TV network.